Hi everyone, this is Johnnyonoes, and I'm playing Project Zomboid version 34.28. In this Let's Learn video, we're going to be going over the different settings that you can configure to make that perfect zombie apocalypse game that you wish to play within Project Zomboid. Now, if you click on Solo, you get this window here with a tutorial, you have scenarios, you have the ability to make a custom sandbox, as well as a bunch of different challenges. Now, the tutorial will give you some insight into how the game is played. There is like a couple zombies. You can learn the interface. You can learn some crafting. This is a great place to start if you've just barely touched the surface of this game. The scenarios, while not very well explained in this window here, give you different variances in you know how many zombies are you looking at, what's the time of since the initial outbreak. Now the time between the initial outbreak and when you start the game is important because of the fact that there are it takes some time for the zombies to populate, as well as the ability to use electricity and water. After a certain amount of time, the electricity and water will turn off. So obviously, if your electricity's off, refrigerators don't work anymore, so you can't really preserve food, and you won't be able to take water out of toilets, sinks, tubs, and all that good stuff. So you're going to be forced to, create or capture water by yourself, as well as produce food on your own after a certain point in the game. So these are different variances on, there's a moderate horde and unlooted homes. If you play 6 months later, there's a large horde, and most of the homes are ransacked and overgrown game world. So this is actually the 6 months later piece is actually starts after survival. Now, if you click on custom sandbox, because if you look at these, you're like, I'm not really sure exactly what this is telling me. If you click on custom sandbox and hit next, and just pick one of the different cities. At the very bottom here is an indicator that tells you all those different scenarios that we're looking at. So if you wanted to dive deep into what exactly initial infection is, you can figure it out by going through all the different selections. So you have some pretty self-explanatory ones. You have zombie count, which is low. This is the population multiplier that exists in the game. I think this is kind of the starting amount of zombies that you have in the game. You have the zombie distribution. You can have uniform, where zombies will spawn uniformly across the map, with the exception of where the player inhabits. So there's kind of like this, they call it 1 or 2 cells worth of a zone that zombies will not spawn at. So if you're in a safe house in the middle of town, zombies will not spawn right on top of you or inside your safe house, but they can spawn right outside this little cell of influence that you have, and then slowly move to your safe house based off of what sounds they hear. So building a safe house in the middle of town isn't going to keep you extremely safe, but what it will do is that you won't have a zombie, you won't wake up to have a zombie right on top of you, unless there was really a way for the zombie to get to you. Urban focused, they tend to, this is self-explanatory, but they'll spawn more in the towns area. They'll spawn more in the outside of buildings and whatnot. Uniform is just uniform across the board. So if you're picking if you want to play like a wilderness survival type character, and you're getting a little bored because there's not a lot of zombies out in the wilderness, you want to pick uniform. That will keep things a lot more interesting. All right, you have the time of the year. This is important because the fact that, as I mentioned earlier, about the utilities turning off. Winter is also kind of a big deal now, where if you want to start close to winter, you're really going to have to rely on non-reliable goods to keep yourself fed. All right, in the game world selections, you have the water shutoff time, which is what we're talking about. So in this particular setting, initial infection, you have 6 to 12 months to enjoy the water and electricity. Then you have your house alarms and locked houses frequency. House alarms, it's every time you break into a house, there's a chance that the alarm will go off. Locked houses, I play with this normally, so I kind of like, yeah, every house is locked, but it forces you to have to either force open a window or break a window and then move all the glass out of the way. Yeah, it restricts how quickly you can loot a house. Food spoilage, this is a much bigger deal when you're further into the game and your non-perishable food is starting to run low. Like when you do when you create vegetables, when you grow vegetables, they have a spoilage rate, and when you don't have any electricity, they spoil pretty quickly. And then the refrigeration effectiveness, which is the opposite, like how well does the refrigerator, how good does the refrigerator preserve food. And then loot respawn, which is an interesting one. It looks like you have the ability of having all the loot respawn in the game, which would make sense to some people, as well as in multiplayer. Multiplayer, you have to have this configured, but I tend to play without loot respawn because the game is interesting to me because of the fact that you do eventually run out of everything that you can find in terms of chips and peanut butter and all the good stuff that you start the game with, and then you're forced to just either grow or scavenge or hunt most of your food. As well as the fact that zombies do provide a pretty good amount of loot on their own. So when you kill a zombie, you can search them, and you can like that's where I find a majority of my weapons. And months since the apocalypse, this is kind of corresponding with these two entries here. So you have nature as well. There is a temperature system in the game where you could be really hot, really cold. Your character could get sick from rain as well as cold or super hot weather. Then you have rain, which it's rain. The gameplay element that's affected by rain is how often your water capturing tools will do what they need to do. So if you've got a barrel, a rain collection barrel, how often it rains, it will help you determine whether or not you've got water in that barrel or not. Then you have erosion speed. Now, erosion is a add-on that was added to the base game. This basically means is how quickly does the map degrade or erode as you're playing the game. In the early game, everything looks really perfect. All the plants look good, all the streets look good, all the houses look okay. As erosion occurs, the houses will get overgrown, the streets will start looking broken up, and the game just kind of gives you a nice little abandoned and overgrown feel to it. Then you got farming speed, which is pretty self-explanatory. Plant resilience. This is how easy it is for you to grow plants or food or vegetables and all that good stuff. In the game, when you're farming, there are diseases that each of your plants could possibly get. Plant resilience is how easy it is to keep a plant watered, as well as how easy it is to combat those different illnesses that the plants have. And then farming abundance is how much you get, and then nature's abundance is how much you get from fishing and foraging. Loot rarity is pretty self-explanatory. Lots of food, lots of weapons, lots of others. You can also set how fast your character gains XP, and the stats decrease basically how often do you have to eat, to drink, and how often or how much you fatigue. And then you have endurance regeneration, which is how long does it take for you to get back to tip-top shape in terms of resting and sleeping. Yeah. Nutrition is a new system that was put in that I have done a lot of testing with, and I really like the nutrition system. This allows you to, it basically allows you to have a starvation value in the background in the game. So when you're playing the game normally, you've got like these hunger moodlets that you get that affect your strength. Overall, though, those, like, if you stayed starving for like 2 days, you'd eventually get the starvation moodlet, which then reduces your health. But at the same time, like, you can kind of game it. If you're not doing anything that day, you can just not eat, and you won't have a problem because all that's being affected is how much damage you do with melee weapons and how quickly you fatigue. The nutrition system adds this other value in the background. It tracks all the calories, the types of foods that you eat. I really like this system, mostly because of the fact that you can take some those really negative traits in the beginning of the game, like super underweight or super obese, and get some cool skill points from it. But at the same time, it adds a level of realism to it that if you're just eating, like, I remember when I used to play this game maybe 2 years ago, I basically would just eat a quarter amount of chips per day, and that never felt all that realistic. The nutrition system ensures that if you're just having a little bit of food each day, you're eventually going to drop weight. Or if you're eating too many chips or peanut butter and all that good stuff, you're going to gain weight. And the cool thing is as you gain or lose weight, you get the traits of a person at a certain weight. So I think it was like 75 to 85 is your normal. 85 to or 75 to 85 is overweight. 85 and up is obese, and the same for the other way. So you actually will pick up a new trait or lose a trait depending on what your weight is through the nutrition system. And then the starter kit, it looks like you can start with some items. Those are for noobs. Anyways, the zombie lore is the other really important piece of the sandbox option. The speed of zombies is in 3 different selections here. You have shamblers, fast shamblers, and sprinters. Shamblers, they'll slowly move towards you. Fast shamblers, they're picking up some speed. The really scary one though is sprinters, where they will sprint like you do. So you can get that 28 days type zombie feeling if that's what you're into. Strength, so you have weak, normal, superhuman. The game normally starts the zombies at weak. And toughness is pretty self-explanatory. How tough is it to take them down? And then you have transmission, where now I've never tried everyone's infected. I don't know if this is allowing you to pick a game where you start off infected, and by using the infection mortality as well as reanimation time, it could come up with how much, if you have 5 days, what can you do within 5 days, and then you eventually turn into a zombie. But blood and saliva, there's no blood and or saliva. Basically, if you get scratched or bitten, you have a percentage of becoming a zombie, depending on whether or not you were scratched or bitten. So scratch, I think, is about 20% or 25%, and you can lower that percentage down, or 25% to be zombified. You can lower that percentage by traits like thick skin or building up your guard skill with a melee weapon. And then saliva is you getting bitten. Now, if you are bitten, it's basically 95% chance you're zombified, which is, if you're bitten, you're done. So infection mortality, this is how long it takes for you to become a zombie. It'd be nice if it was really just like 1 minute in the survival mode, because once you're bitten, it's pretty much game over. And it can be sometimes hard to figure out if you're zombified or not. Like if you just took 1 bite and you're able to heal it up really fast, and you're like, okay, I guess things are okay. What I tend to do is I'll sleep and I'll stay in one place for a time, and as soon as you start getting the anxious and sick moodlets, you know you're done. The reanimation time is how long it takes for you to turn into a zombie after you have been killed. Apparently this is fun in multiplayer when you're playing with other friends, and it also is an added benefit of, if you got a ton of gear on you when you become a zombie, you can start the game over again, find your zombie, get all the gear back, and you're back to square one again. Cognition is how the zombies move around in the map. So do they use navigate is crawling over fences, jumping through windows. Basic navigation is just moving around, or you can have them navigate plus use doors. which is a little bit frightening. Memory is very important to understand that that this system actually exists. Zombies do have a, when they see you, they'll go towards you. If they hear you, they'll go towards you. But if you're smart and you hide behind a wall or sneak around a building or something like that, they're still trying to go to that one point that they saw you. So goes into the really cool zombie mechanics that Project Zomboid has, where you can really avoid zombies. You can manipulate zombies by using this memory system of, like, okay, if you really want them to see them, you can yell out to them or start sprinting, but then quickly dive into, like, either a window or an alleyway, or just trying your best to avoid them, because you know that they have an idea where you're at, 5 to 10 seconds ago. Decomposition. I really like this system a lot because it kind of rewards you for playing the game a long time. Decomposition, over time as you play the game, zombies will slowly weaken and slow down as well. So as your character gets better, they get worse. And then you have the different ways a zombie can see you, or can perceive you. So sight, hearing, and smell. Environmental attacks. I'm thinking this is this is the can attack doors while roaming. Oh yeah, this is the zombies attacking the environment, so knocking down doors, breaking glass. I'm surprised this is an option, because if they weren't, they'd just be standing there. So you have advanced zombie options as well. So you have the respawn rate. So this is how often they'll respawn. You have the population. So this is a starting rate, and then there is also a kind of a maximum threshold of how many zombies you can have on the map. And then you can have when the zombies hit their peak in terms of these numbers here, how often they do respawn. And then this unseen statement here. This is what I was talking about when I was saying that if a player is in a cell, I'm sorry, that's not right. Yes, okay, so this I am right. Okay, so this is when, if your player is in a cell for a certain amount of time, zombies will not spawn in this location. So basically, if you've got a safe house in the middle of town, the one cell that you inhabit will make it so that zombies don't spawn on top of you. Now, this multiplier that's here is how many hours of time it takes, or how many hours it will be since you've left a cell. So if you're in a single cell in the middle of the town and you've left for 16 hours, the game will then consider that cell as being an opportune cell to start respawning zombies. And then how often or how much they respawn based off of the multiplier here. Redistribution hours. Now, zombies tend to congregate because they hear each other. Now, because back in the early days of the game, you would see either zombie hordes or just like one or two. Now they tend to redistribute based off of the sound, and you get more chunky hordes than you would earlier in the game. So instead of running into one or two, you run into like 5 to 6, and you'll see here that there is like a rally group size here. So your average group that you'll run into is 5, as well as how far they'll need to be to regroup. And then, the game, it really distributes these zombies in a way that makes the game fun. It's right at this point in time. It's not too easy because you don't run into one or two, and it's not too hard where, okay, all the zombies know exactly where they're all at, and they all jump into a single spot, making it impossible to loot that particular area. And then how many or how close members of a group stay to the group's leader. This is how packed are these rally groups. And then follow sound distance. And yeah, those are all the different options you can find in the game. You can tailor the game to your what type of game you're looking for, as well as try these really cool challenges. Like I really like that you have 1 day. You have 1 day to get as much gear as you can, and then all the zombies on the map just know exactly where you are, regardless of whether you're hidden. The whole zombie memory thing I was talking about earlier. They don't have it. They know exactly where you are, and they are coming for you. And then you have different little challenges here. You want to try in the winter. The House in the Woods is a really fun one. It kind of recreates some of those zombie movies that we all know and love. And then a really CDDA. So this is you wake up and the house is on fire. You're trying to get out. But that goes over all the different settings for the game. So for me, I always play survival. I like to play what I assume the dev is kind of tailored the game towards. And if you're interested in trying to make the game a little bit easier, you can go back into the sandbox and you can see all the different settings. So if you wanted to do survival, but then you might want to do nutrition as well, because nutrition is disabled to start now, given that they wanted to take some time to rework the system. So yeah, you can have whatever zombie experience you want in Project Zomboid. So that's my Let's Learn video on the different settings within the game and tailoring the game to your specific needs for your zombie survival experience. So this is Johnnyonoes, and I am playing Project Zomboid version 3428. Thanks so much for watching.